Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel and podcast. It's Mark and Chris back at the same time, Monday night, 9:30, asking the same question we ask every Monday night. What's going on? I tell you what's going on. This is a very special week for Newcastle United. There's a special anniversary on the cards at the end of the week, but there's also a special anniversary for Evermore. This man right alongside me here, the producer of the show, the main stat man, the man who does all the wonderful imagery that you see on this channel. It's his birthday tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. So please, in the comments, wish Mark a very happy 57th birthday.
Thanks, man.
Really looking forward to it. I'm only joking. He is actually older than me, only by a few months, but I look considerably older than him because I work in sales, and that's what it does to you. I look like Harry Styles when I started. Look at the clip of me now. But happy birthday to Mark in the comments, lads and lasses. Everybody, give him some love in the comments here. We're going to get stuck right in. It's been a brilliant weekend. As you know, Newcastle United won. No one thought they were going to win. We didn't think they were going to win, and they won. It was absolutely brilliant performance. We talked about it post-match. I promise I won't yell at any little Longstaff supporters tonight and upset them like I did at the post-match. I was very tired from holidays. I'm a bit more rested now and a bit more in a good mood, as I promised I would be. But if this is the kind of thing you guys like, smash subscribe. Come help us get to the 9,000 subscriber mark. We were 8,800, and a couple have gone off. Maybe it was Max's mates that are upset after the post-match. But listen, you know, I'm an emotional man, and sometimes I can upset you. But hey, that's part and parcel of being the content creator. So smash that button, help get us to 9K, guys. We've got a mint prize, as we say. It's the blue retro Keegan style McEwen's top. It's mint. It could be yours. Once we get a 9K, we'll do a prize draw, and you could be in it to win it. And we are live tonight, as always. Jump in the comments. I can see a few of you already wishing Mark a very happy birthday. We can see Ian has already wished you a happy 57th,
Thanks,
Mark. And George says you don't look a day over 58 as well, which is absolutely brilliant. Hyperbole is joining us from Dubai, which I'm sure the weather is much nicer than it is in misty old Newcastle. But good to see you in the comments, Hyperbole. Stu Mag says, all the best, Mark. Have a good one. Of course he's going to have a good one, Stu. He's on the show with me. What could you want for your birthday other than listen to your mate you've known since he was 5 years old talk rubbish about football alongside you? So let's get stuck in then, Mark. There's only one place to start. That game at the weekend, it was a throwback, wasn't it, to, as we say, feeling 22. You can tell we've got teenage daughters, can't you? Taylor Swift references. But feeling 22, it was a throwback for Newcastle United. We talked about it for absolutely months. It was something you preached about non-stop. You know, what happened to the Newcastle United of a couple of years ago with that unbelievable left-hand side of Joe Willick and Joe Linton. It's almost like Eddie Howe, you know, had a break from training. He thought, I'll just flick YouTube on. Oh, look, that lad's talking some sense. Maybe I'll go back in time and replicate 2022. So I'm going to give you the credit for it, Mark. There's a birthday present.
Thanks. I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. Newcastle looks so much better at the weekend, much more like the Newcastle that finished in the Champions League. And it was a joy to watch, mate, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, you're right. It was a throwback to performances of a year gone or so. First off, just thank you for everybody's messages in the comments. It's really, really kind of you. And thanks, Chris. I'm, you know, not a day over 57. Cheers. That makes me feel much, much better. I'm only 43. If you believe that for 1 second.
He is. He actually is. I'm just being mischievous. He is only 43.
But yeah, I mean, it was just a really, really good performance from minute one to minute, what was it, 100 in the end. I think that it felt like added time went on for quite a while. It just seemed to go on and on and on. But the setup was perfect. I know there were question marks, and you put it on X and hold your hands up and go, when you see that happen in thinking about how much Newcastle have to utilise the possession that they actually have, that Tonali being dropped was questionable. But the way that Eddie Howe had the side set up, and he did something much different to the way that the team's been set up. Well, thanks, Kendall. Than the way they've been set up in midfield right the way through this season. And obviously a question, I guess, a reaction to the fact that Joe Willick is fully fit. And he looks much, much better on Saturday as well. And you're right, that and I know others have talked about this being, you know, a return to that. And hopefully that's the way that will continue to go on as weeks and months go on. And it's a return to that style, that level of performance that I guess we're used to for watching Newcastle over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. I mean, Joe Willock almost watched my video and said, "Shut your face, you YouTube twat," much like that Arsenal YouTuber said, which, to be fair, was
fair play to him. That was brilliant.
I can't actually remember the kid's name. If anybody remembers, whack it in the comments. But it was absolutely brilliant from the Arsenal content creator. To be fair, it was brilliant. But yeah, Joe Willock, he just looked kind of re-energized, really. And I really do think, we're going to talk about Eddie's plan B in a minute. It's something we've criticised him for massively, but it's almost like he's really looked at this, and he's really looked at why we're not getting a lot out of the players, why we're not getting the same kind of throughput from the players that we used to get. And he's certainly the likes of Joe Willock, who we all know is such a talented player and such an asset to that team when he's let off the leash and when he can play the way he can play. Yes, the injuries have taken a toll, but even though he's been back from injury for a while, I haven't seen the same impact from Joe Willock previously. He looks tired all the time, quite know where he's playing. But alongside Alexander Isak, and I said this before we came on, even Isak hasn't looked the same player, but because he's been so isolated and he's been sniffed out by defenses, people drop with him, people stick close to him. But when you throw Joe Willock into the mix and Joe Linton on that left-hand side, Joe Willock's energy and running is so dynamic that he rattles defenders that don't know where he is, because they know he's got that ability to get into the box and get on the end of chances, make things happen. And I think it unsettles other people's back fours. And because of that, it allows Alexander Isak to pull away and get space. We saw him look way more lively the weekend. I know the mainstream media were going, "Oh, he's auditioning for Arsenal," which is the biggest wank narrative I've ever heard in my life. But, he looked way more fresh, way more kind of, exciting again, the Alexander Isak that we all want to see. And I think Joe Willock alongside him was a massive part of that, Mark. They click so well together. They're friends off the pitch, as you can see, that the banter that they do, on the kind of social medias and stuff is really funny. You can tell they're good friends, but they just get each other's game, don't they? We're going to get into Longstaff in a minute. We've got a whole section about that, where Longstaff is definitely throwing custard pie in a lot of people's faces, including mine. But talking about Joe Willock just in isolation, Mark, I think we're seeing the return back to that player that was so influential when we finished top four. And that's credit to Eddie, and that's credit to Joe Willock as well. I think they both had a plan on the training pitch to get him back into positions where he is influencing games, and we're seeing it now. That's 2 games on the spin where he's looked like the Joe Willock of 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I guess even in your video that you did about the potential regression of where he was, it wasn't, I guess, a video saying this is absolutely what's happened. It was a question about what's happened. Is it just the injuries that have caused him? Perhaps it was, and it was just a case of getting him completely back to full fitness. And even in games earlier in the season, when you expect a little bit more, you would get glimpses, and then he would just completely disappear off. And he never looked fully match fit, even the time, given the time that he's been back. But he was brilliant. And you're right, that dynamic down the left, we've talked about an awful lot, and I felt like I was talking about it until I was blue in the face, to be honest with you, at times, because that balance that it gives you on that side is something that has been lacking, and others don't give you. As good as Harvey Barnes is, he doesn't give you the balance down, with the two Joes will give. They doesn't have the interchangeability down that side. He hasn't got the physicality or the athleticism that those two have. So having him where he is, and his ability to run players down and not stop, and you're right, scares defenders by putting them under more pressure than we've seen from a Newcastle side so far this season. In those last 2 games, I think he's shown just what's been missing.
Absolutely. Well, we've got some good slides when we talk about Eddie's plan B going into it, but just finishing up on the game, Mark, the big moment was obviously the goal. Again, credit where it's due for Longstaff. Perfectly weighted pass, didn't panic, didn't rush it, didn't do the kind of things that Longstaff's done previously. Everything he did was simple, crisp, at the weekend. And that's the kind of game where Longstaff can thrive, and we'll get into that in a second. But the first time ball from Anthony Gordon, I was screaming so loudly about it, because not only was it an unbelievable ball, it was Beckham-esque, to be fair. And as Shearer said, it was a cross from the 90s, because that's when fucking wingers used to play on the side that their foot favours, right or left. None of this inverted bollocks that's been going on for the past God knows how long. And when you play a right-footed player on the right wing, that's the kind of ball you can put in. Alexander Isak isn't even that good in the air. Somewhere on a hospital bed, Callum Wilson was screaming, where the fuck were them crosses when I was fit? Because I would have had about 50 fucking goals a season if you put them in for me. But it was a brilliant ball by Anthony Gordon, who he just looked at home on the right-hand side, didn't he? He looked lively there. That cross alone just shows you this whole right-sided argument. I was listening to the guys at True Faith, unbelievable podcast, great podcast by Alex and the guys. I reposted it on X because I thought it was brilliant. And that was something that Alex said, this right wing the argument should be over now. Anthony Gordon should be on that right-hand side and Joe Linton should be on that left. I mean, there's grounds for that, Mark, isn't there? You know, after what we've seen, if you can put a ball in like that to the striker against Arsenal, against the best two centre-halves in the league, supposedly, Anthony Gordon's got to be on that right-hand side, man, hasn't he?
I think certainly for now, and look, I know that his preferred position is to play from that left. It does sound.
Yeah, sorry, inverted bollocks does sound nasty. To be fair, yeah, you'll end up in Holby City alongside Callum Wilson if you had inverted bollocks. There, I've got to say. You don't know if you're coming or going, but yeah. Sorry, mate.
No, just to say, I know Gordon prefers the left because he likes the ability to run on and cut in and get it on his right foot and go for goal. I think in his head he wants to be a goal threat rather than a goal provider, I think, at times. But look, he's got so much ability in him, and if you can put a ball, that's not a fluke to put a ball in like that. And we've seen from set pieces that he's good at putting balls into the box at times as well. So I just think and I go back to that word I said before about the balance on the left-hand side. I think those two on the left are balanced out by having somebody that good on the right-hand side. Because when you've had Murphy and Almiron, and he forgot him there, on that side.
How can you forget him?
Exactly. You just don't have that level of quality. And Gordon is such a step up on both of those two that it just feels that you've found this point now where everybody's pretty much fully fit in that sort of attacking sense, bar Wilson, I guess. Miley's coming back to be able to help out in that midfield wherever he needs to be. Tonali's sort of up to speed. Obviously, the defence, you're still missing Botman. But Gordon on that right now feels a good fit. And it worked well with the dynamic between him and Livramento as well, who I thought was brilliant.
He was excellent. That was Tino's best game probably since his debut against City, I think.
Possibly,
in many ways. He just looks so assured defensively, even going forward as well. I mean, he's not as dangerous as Lewis Hall, who was absolutely brilliant. I gave him man of the match. I think everybody gave him man of the match. It was just absolutely class. He just gets better and better week in, week out. But I think it's been said, on the TV, it's been said on other content creator shows that protection that Joe Linton and Joe Willick were giving him as well just makes Lewis Hall even more comfortable in that left back position. And, for such a young player, he looks like such an experienced player, and I think that protection there really helps him. Just a quick pause, Mark. I really hope that's true, Trevor. I had that comment up before. Trevor said he was once in a punk band called Inverted Bollocks. I really hope that's true. Trevor, if it's true, please put a link into any kind of music that you made, because I think that is absolutely amazing, mate. But going back to Lewis Hall, speaking of amazing, segue. I said this on the post-match, Mark. If that lad isn't in the England squad, I'll be absolutely astounded. Tell me another English left back who's playing as well as that kid, man. There isn't any.
There isn't another. Leif Davis, is he English? He
possibly.
Is, he?
He's English. He's English. Yeah.
So I mean, he's played well this season in a side that's at the wrong end of the table.
He's a Geordie boy, isn't he? Leif Davis. I
think he's from. Is he County Durham way or something? Anyway,
I think so. Yeah.
We've gone off on one, but who else is there? Shaw's rocked continually, and in no sort of form for God knows how long.
Yeah.
Chilwell is an absolute shadow of where he was. Levi Colwill is nowhere that quality. There isn't another left back with the ability that Lewis Hall has and is in form at the moment. He should absolutely get a call up. Tino got his on the back end of when there were a couple of injuries, and he got his chance to go into the squad. But both of them probably should be there with the way things are going, because when you look at the form of the likes of Walker, had been awful at times.
I think Walker's on that trajectory. Really, he's definitely on the decline. There's no doubt about it.
There's definitely an opportunity for both fullbacks to grab an England spot and keep it.
Absolutely. Dazzler's saying, does Tuchel know Hall? I think he must do, surely, because wasn't he at Chelsea when Hall was still in the academy? Or was he still in the squad when
he must have known he was about? And he'll know. I mean, he surely watched enough of the games and enough of stuff to have known him. But he surely must have known him.
Lampard was there before Tuchel, wasn't he? So Lampard brought Hall in. So was Hall in and around the squad when Tuchel came in? I'm pretty sure he was. We'll check that, Dazzler. We'll check that in the old.
I would have to check that one.
Yeah, Lewis is saying he's one of our own. I think that's that Lewis Hall. To be fair, he's got his family a Geordies through and through, aren't they? I think his dad's a broad Geordie, to be fair, even though Lewis Hall sounds like something out of fucking Downton Abbey, doesn't he? He's quite posh as Lewis Hall, but his dad is broad Geordie. He looks like he could work on the fucking doors in the big market. His dad, I remember when he signed, I thought he was his fucking mind and not his dad. He was a unit, to be fair. But they're obviously got Geordie links, haven't they? To be fair, what I loved about Lewis Hall getting man of the match, I think his brother posted something on X as well, just dead proud. And I thought that was class. Lewis has said it was Tuchel that gave Hall his first team debut.
It was. I've just literally found that.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Well said, Lewis. Good shout, mate. Good shout. But yeah, I think Tuchel definitely put him in the squad, knows all about him, And Tuchel's a very kind of methodical manager as well. And I think you'd be looking at the weaknesses in that squad. And left back is a massive weakness in the England squad. Yeah. And there's absolutely no doubt. Sorry, Lewis has said it was Leif Davis is one of our own. That's right. But Hall is as well, mate. Absolutely. But yeah, great performances all around. Confidence growing again, Mark. I mean, again, this is something I heard the True Faith lads say as well. Alex, I think it was, and I think it's bang on. Let's not get carried away with it. Two games don't make a season. The season hasn't been perfect. There's been issues. There's been problems, but we've been asking Eddie to fix it. Some people had doubts that Eddie could fix it, and I'm just gonna have a slight little semi rant about this in a minute, so you can just catch your breath and have a cuppa in a second. But the whole yeah, have a lie down. But yeah, so we've got to give him credit for doing what he's done, getting the lads back up to a level of performance. 2 massive results, and we wanted to turn the season, but this is where my semi rant comes in. So just strap in, everybody. I won't be long, I promise. It's a mini one. It's a bite-sized rant. So every single football fan has a right to have a crisis of confidence, either in the manager or a player or a collection of players or whatever it is, right? But what really fucking pisses me off about modern day football supporters is this need to throw that back in people's faces when the result goes the opposite way to the way the person maybe thought it was going to go. Now, not every single football fan is positive on a result. Likes the Toon polls. He does a poll every single match, and he's got 3 different options there: win, lose, or draw. And not everybody picks win. Not everybody picks lose. Not everybody picks draw. That's the whole point of football. We don't really know what the hell is going to happen in the game. And if you have a crisis of confidence in the manager's ability or a player's ability, that's your right as a football fan. Some of the shit I've seen on social media, dragging people's tweets out from 2 or 3 weeks ago, trying to embarrass them just to get clicks and interactions. It's fucking pathetic. It really, really is. Just enjoy the result, enjoy the performance, be happy that Newcastle are going back into a direction that we all wanted to be in, because we're all Newcastle fans at the end of the day. But these fucking arseholes who the first interaction from them is to just throw it back in somebody's face. Oh, where's all the Eddie out fucking crew now? Oh, what did you say 2 weeks ago? And capturing people's tweets. Who could be asked to go through somebody's tweet deck or X deck, or the fuck it's called these days, and pull out something from 2 weeks ago just to try and embarrass them? Honestly, pathetic, mate. Enjoy the result and be happy that the club is going in the right direction and hope that it continues on, because we've got to do this against Forest, Mark. There's no point doing it against Chelsea and Arsenal if we don't turn up against Forest. But that's my mini rant. I'm sick of saying shit like that. Everyone just support the team, understand and respect the fact that people have different opinions, and fucking get on with it. So that's my little mini rant on there, mate.
Yeah, look, I get it, I think there were some tweets that were put out there. There were some posts that were put out there that were beyond, I think, some of the normal run of the mill, and yeah, there were questions over if the last week or the last 10 days had gone really badly, then there were going to be serious question marks asked. And I don't think that was an unfair thing to say. If Newcastle came out of this with 2 defeats to Chelsea, defeat to Arsenal, and a defeat to Forest, then there were always going to be question marks about where this was going under Eddie Howe. But he stood up and he's done what he needed to do. There was, I thought, the first Chelsea game, I thought the performance wasn't too bad. The result didn't go the right way. There were problems within that, but it was better. The result in midweek was, or the performance in midweek was much better in the cup. Much more what we're used to seeing in terms of that high intensity football, which I think shocked Chelsea a little bit. The performance against Arsenal was exceptional, and they've got to carry that on. You're absolutely right. There's no point in doing it in 2 games and then just falling apart against a team like Forest. Not being harsh to them and saying that they're a worse side.
They're in the league. I thought Brian Clough was back at one point, mate. I was checking he wasn't on the touchline.
They are playing some pretty good football as well. It's not just crap.
Especially that number 8, mate, that they've got. Fucking don't get me started on that one. That young midfielder. Where's he from again? He looks a player, mate.
Can he sign in that one? Yeah. But no, look, they are doing really well. But Newcastle have to go into that with confidence. And yes, you can have an opinion on what's gone on and what may happen. That's not to say that person or that group of people, whoever, saying that should happen or think that, that's, well, if it was me, this is what I'd do with it. It's not. I mean, objectively, you can look at how things have gone. And look, had Newcastle lost those 4 games in a row, is Eddie Howe on the chopping block? And I don't think he would have been far off it with how things had gone. If there were 4 poor performances and 4 poor results, the writing's almost on the wall. And we said that, if things continued to go badly, if performances weren't there and the results weren't coming, then he could be in trouble. But there's always that. There's always the possibility to turn it around. And I think that's exactly what he's done. And you just need to see that keep going. And you're absolutely right. Have an opinion. You're fucking allowed.
Exactly.
You've got your own mind. Have an opinion on something. It may not be right. As it turns out, you may not be wrong. And you were man enough to say pre-game you didn't think the Tonali being dropped was a good thing, but man enough to turn around afterwards and say, hands up, I got that one wrong.
Exactly. And a lot of people will do that. And that's what it's all about. Football is a very divisive game and always has been and always will be, in my opinion. But this new craze, and I think it's generally social media orientated, and especially certain platforms like X that is literally like a services toilet. That's how rank that thing is. It's just full of skid marks and turds that won't flush, to be brutally honest with you. And it's just absolutely horrific. It really, really is. And these little, twats that come out and do stuff like that, and listen, I know some people on X, the likes of Mouth of the Tying on everyone's cup of tea, right? But the lad came out and said he was wrong, and that's fine. You got to say hands up, fair play, mate. You were wrong about the lineup, you were wrong about the players. But then there's people recapturing his tweets, and certain people in particular just trying to almost set about him. And there were some other accounts that came out and said, I don't think that's the right way to behave. I think Toon Paul said something as well that, and it's not, it just creates more division within the fan bases, and it's something that Newcastle fans were never really associated with. We weren't that kind of fan base, but I think it's a combination of the new age of fan, the takeover, the Kool-Aid swiggers, that no matter what, they're still going to tell you to trust the process and that you're an idiot and all that kind of stuff. And, I hope it fucks off as quick as it came, but sadly, I think it may be the other thing. But on a more positive things, mate, Eddie's plan B is our next section. Now, that's something we've accused Eddie Howe of not having. A plan B is in-game management. It isn't just us. A lot of other content creators have also questioned him about that. Thank you, Dan, for your super chat. Really appreciate that, buddy. Good to see you in the chat as well, mate. I'll buy Mark a pint in the social club with that £2. I'm only joking. I probably could as well with the price of the pints in the social club. Throwback. But we did question him. Loads of other content creators questioned him. Sensible, grown-up, articulate content creators questioned him and said, "Can he change games around?" And it looks like he has done something. He hasn't come out and actively said he's done something different, but you got some great slides there, Mark, and this dovetails into the Sean Longstaff inclusion as well, which we'll get into in a minute. But if you just talk about what Newcastle did well at the weekend, and obviously that throwback back to 2 years ago, where we were that intense team to press and rattle teams like we did at the weekend.
Yeah, look, I've sort of the last couple of weeks, or maybe even more than that, talked about the changing the way that Newcastle approach games, changing that midfield balance, the way that it's set up to combat teams and prevent passes through the lines. We've talked about that. Well, last week I talked about that Eddie Howe gap, didn't I? And where we saw a game against City where that was stopped because of the way that Newcastle set up. I think they did something similar with a different style this week in particular. The first thing I just wanted to show in terms of what I'm talking about is this is the average positions for Newcastle at the weekend. And there's a very distinct change in that midfield. There's two almost sitting. They didn't always, but that's their average position, very much as two in the middle. And the huge difference is that third midfielder is either Joe Linton or Willick and where they're positioned. And they're very much linked. And Joe Willick playing a much higher third midfield role, being able to get into almost a second striker role. And I'll come to the slides with that. And it just changed the makeup of the way that Newcastle set up. They were able to press a little bit better. They were able to isolate Arsenal's midfielders, particularly in the first half, and stop them being allowed to play balls through. And then the change-up will come to in the second half. But this was sort of the visual of it. So you can see immediately in the centre, you've got Bruno and you've got Sean playing as almost that two in midfield, with Willick pushed higher. Obviously the fullbacks being pushed slightly further forward as well. And there were times that Lewis Hall would drop into almost a three in that back line, and Livramento would play a little bit further forward, and then vice versa. They played that very, very well. Again, with this one, everybody had their sort of pre-programmed plan for this. It was very much that you had, and I saw it in the comments before, it was like a 4-4-2 of old. At times, you had a bank of four at the back, a bank of four in midfield. Gordon and Joe Linton would come deep. They would come and help out. But then the ability to just go and pressure that Arsenal backline, and that second player through further forward to be able to go and put pressure on the centre backs. We've seen in recent weeks where Isak's been the one that's been running backwards and forwards, and if that had been the case here, you probably would have had a scenario where the two Arsenal centre backs just pass the ball back to each other, and by 45 minutes, Isak's absolutely knackered because all of that running he's doing backwards and forwards for absolutely no gain. But that second player in that position puts a different spin on it for them. So that press is a lot more effective against the way that Arsenal are set up. And this was talking about the isolation of Arsenal's midfield. And I've highlighted Declan Rice in there because this was in that 4-4-2 setup where they've allowed Arsenal to get players forward and not go and track them back. But what Newcastle had done, and the same as they did against City, was block off those passing lanes. So the out ball here again is going to be wide. Even if that ball's played into Declan Rice, he's so close to the players around him, he's not going to have time to be able to turn that around or be able to play off in another direction, probably only the ball back to the player that's got the ball in the first place. So Newcastle did a really good job of stopping that play through Arsenal's midfield, which they love to do. And again, the bank of four, the higher midfield, and being able to put that pressure on and stop those passing lanes through. And I just thought that was a really, it was a huge change to the way that we've seen the midfield setup before, where if you look at the average positions for the weeks before, it's been a 3, and occasionally you see one slightly high, but they're pretty much been a flat 3. It was a change. Second half, things completely changed. Arsenal changed their approach. They pushed Declan Rice a little bit more further forward. They brought Thomas Partey more into midfield from right back. He's not a right back, but they brought him more into the fray in there. And what Newcastle did in the second half was went, okay, well we'll change from that sort of 4-4-2 formation and dropped into a 4-5-1. And again, what they did brilliantly, and the same thing they did against City, was just close off those passing lanes. So you can see the players. Declan Rice is the one, I think, at the top, in between the lines, just behind Gordon and Longstaff up there. No ability for the ball to get played through to him. There are probably there's sort of 2 options here for the left back, is to play the ball wide, probably play the ball into the. I think that Saliba in the middle that's got forward into that, who's not so much of a threat on the ball, but you can see Isak starting to head that way. And again, it was just brilliant the way that they set up. And the other part of this was that Newcastle made the pitch really narrow for themselves. They packed that area box to like the edge of the box to the edge of the box and forced Arsenal to go wide pretty much every single time. I think there was only one through ball that got through the lines, and I think it was Saka that took it on. I think he miscontrolled it. I have to go back and watch again, but it was only really one that really caught them out. Every other time the ball went right or left, and it all went wide, and Newcastle were comfortable then going, fine, you put balls into the box and we'll defend them. And I thought Share and Burn, particularly second half, I thought were very, very good. And the only real chance that Arsenal had was right at the death, where Declan Rice probably should score, but it's the only one he had. They just played this really, really well. And again, here you see them all within that 18 yard box lines. The 4-5-1 again, and forcing Arsenal to go, we can't play through here. We're going to have to move the ball left and right to try and put the ball in. And Newcastle didn't deviate from that. And I just thought it was a really, really good tactical setup. And we talked about tactical fails the previous week where things had not gone too well. I thought particularly the way that Eddie had them lined up, the personnel on the pitch as well, was absolutely perfect. As I normally do with the game control index, and this was the other part of this as well, is the overall possession for Newcastle at the weekend was 36.7%. In the first half, they had 43% possession. They really sort of kept it toe-to-toe, and you can see that with a game control index. And I always like to see that go, because it kind of gives you a real clear indication of the way things have gone. I thought that first half in particular, Newcastle were more than a match for what Arsenal had thrown at them. Yes, Arsenal got control of the ball, and they played in high areas, and they kept the ball in the final third an awful lot, but they created nothing with it. And I just thought that was a good indication of just the two differences. And that kind of goes to match with the formations and the way that they were set up. That in particular just shows how good Newcastle were. And it was tactically brilliant from Eddie Howe at the weekend. He got it absolutely spot on. And as Arteta said, they were dragged into a game that they didn't want to play, and that's credit to the way that Eddie Howe set them up, to the credit to the players that were on the field that implemented that plan to perfection.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, this is why I don't think Arsenal will win the title, to be honest with you. And I know Gary Neville was still kind of dying on that hill, but, we played really well. There's no doubt about that. I'm not taking anything away from Newcastle United at all, but Arsenal do not have a centre forward. Obviously, I think a few comments have already been there. They're massively coveting our centre forward, which I don't think you're going to get. Certainly not for anything less than 100 million quid. But to miss a player like Odegaard for them just completely derails any of their creativity whatsoever. None of the rest of the players, have that capability to unlock a defence or do something. Whereas we had Anthony Gordon, we had Bruno Guimaraes on the pitch, we had Joe Willock, we had Isak, we had Joe Linton. We had players that you felt at any given time could do something that might, create a chance or create an attack. And I just never felt, despite all those brilliant stats you put up there with the game control index, where Arsenal did come into the game and take control of the ball and the possession, I never felt at any danger that they were going to cause us any trouble. Pope didn't really make a great deal of saves. I think that you said Declan Rice chance was the big one, and then I think Jesus comes into the box and it's a great bit of defence by Anthony Gordon, despite some Arsenal fans asking whether it was a penalty or not. And they did. It was weird. They asked about it, and then they said it wasn't, which was very weird. But it was brilliant by Anthony Gordon. And I just felt that Arsenal were asleep. They weren't in the moment. They weren't in the game. And I think Arteta kind of said that they dragged us into a game that we didn't want to play. And I think that we dragged them into a game that was built behind aggression and determination and drive and cheering tackles and throw-ins, and some of the Arsenal fans mocked us for that. And I don't give a fuck. Shove it up your ass. We beat you again. We've fucked your title chances up yet again. And this is not a fluke. This is a team that is coming at you with everything they've got, and you can't deal with it because you're too powder puff as a squad to deal with it. It's interesting, this comment. I did see this I Like Coffee, where the Arsenal pre-match article on their website said Tino and Hall were bad at 1v1, which was brilliant because I was actually checking it wasn't Paul Burston that wrote that, but they obviously didn't do any research whatsoever because Tino Livramento is one of the best one-on-one defenders in the league because he's lightning quick and it's very hard to get around him. I mean, we watched him mark Pedro Neto and Martinelli out of the game, mark 2 games on the spin, and they're both rapid. And then Lewis Hall, that was a criticism you maybe could have thrown at Lewis Hall last year, but not anymore, because the lad is so much better defensively and he's got that protection, with the 2 Joes. And this is what Eddie has to do now. This has to be the team going forward. What a brilliant super chat and a kind donation there. Donation to the Mark Needs a Beer Fund, Ty. I really appreciate that. We'll get in trouble for that. We'll have somebody on the blower. But we really appreciate that, Mike. Very kind of you. And we'll make sure Mark gets a nice lager down his throat with that donation, mate. Very, very nice. He needs it. He deserves it. He works hard on this channel, and he is a dad as well. So that's why he looks 67, because life was tough. I'm only joking, Mark. I'm only joking. Another comment there from I Love Coffee. Mourinho didn't have a good game for them despite the hype around his signing. Again, I just think, Coffee, that he was just rattled, Mark, wasn't he? I just think the game was too intense for him. He just, he couldn't handle the physicality, and I mean, Bruno Guimaraes was at his shit house best, wasn't he, to be fair? You know what I mean?
Yeah, look, I think that game was the way that Newcastle set up. It didn't suit Mourinho's game in that. I think certainly the first half, he was pushed very much up sort of left-hand side as a high midfielder, and it didn't really suit him. And I think probably that's what cost Arsenal in the end, is the fact that they played him a little bit higher to try and play in between the lines that Newcastle then didn't allow them to do, because I think one of the comments earlier on is, do we think the Arsenal were sort of surprised by the plan B? I think, where is it? So here it is. I Like Coffee. Do you think Arteta didn't expect or prepare for it? But I think he's probably looked at it and thought, we'll get the same 4-3-3 they get every single time. We can play that flat midfield 3. And they were shocked by the fact that there was this difference in the way that they were set up, and they weren't expecting it, because realistically, none of us have seen it an awful lot at all.
I didn't expect it, so I can't imagine.
Exactly. I mean, kind of, it's an interesting one for me, because I think an awful lot of people would have liked him to have come back. I think he would would
Yeah, I
possibly
did.
be a really
I
good
thought he was
signing.
great player at Sociedad. I thought he looked really, really good. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just not quite. It's just
But
not
if anything,
quite work for him.
Newcastle just made Arsenal players look average at the weekend. I mean, the bit of commentary that I loved was they were talking about Martinelli, and I wouldn't really want to be up one on one versus Gabriel Martinelli, given his pace, and then Tino burns him completely, takes the ball, and it was like, well, there you go. You can shut up now, because he got him every time. He defended brilliantly, Tino, and likewise Hall. I thought he was exceptional up against that. Odd one or two moments where he possibly allows a ball in that he shouldn't. Outside of that, he was brilliant, and I love that link up and the way that Joe Linton will come back and he will deputise at left back when Hall does to step forward. And there were moments in the second half when the ball would get played out to that left-hand side or Arsenal's right-hand side, and Hall would go and meet the man with the ball, and Joe Linton would come and tuck into that left-back role, and it's all in sync. It was brilliant.
It was fluid. It was fluid as well between the three.
Absolutely.
And Lewis Hall was man of the match, and I think tonight's man of the match is Marcus, mate, because this is unbelievable generosity for the super chat from Marcus. You absolute legend, mate.
Thank you.
That is incredible, mate. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I imagine you're somewhere and you've drank the entire top shelf and you've just hit the wrong button and you maybe added an extra zero by mistake, mate. But listen, we love you. Thank you so much for that, mate. That is massive generosity from you. You absolute ledge. We really, really appreciate that, mate. That's massive from you. But yeah, so I think kind of closing off on the the game itself and the plan B, Mark. Eddie's kind of, I wouldn't say he stumbled onto this. He's kind of revisited what worked well. And I think he has to stick with this now. He was relying on Ian to piss on the chips. It was meant to be a tense spot, beautifully and absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it was fabulous, Adrian. Thank you, mate. And thank you to Marcus again. But yeah, I think Eddie has to stick to this kind of strategy that he's revisited now, and it's worked against these big teams. But moving on to, I suppose, the next category does kind of dovetail into the Longstaff section. Longy'S shot, as we've called it. This is kind of a double entendre here about this, given Sean Longstaff's little comment after the game. But I saw a video Craig Hope did, and Craig Hope gets a lot of stick, but I actually quite like what Craig does, and I think he articulates his point of view very well. And he said something quite poignant. He said, the best side doesn't always contain all the best players, and it was quite a poignant thing to say. And I thought, as football fans, we're so obsessed about the best players always finding a way into the team. Sandro Tonali, Harvey Barnes, all this kind of stuff. But when you look at the performance like at the weekend, and you think, there's a place in that setup for a player like Sean Longstaff. And I think you could see that Sean Longstaff walked onto that pitch. I think he lost the ball in the first 2 minutes, typical Sean kind of moment where he kind of undercooked the pass or something. And he went steaming at an Arsenal player, put him in his arse and won it back. And I thought, oh, hang on a minute. That's a bit of a different Sean Longstaff, that we've seen this season. And he seemed to have this confidence about him. And I think it was because the manager pulled him and said, listen, it doesn't matter how good Sandro played midweek, you're starting. And I think for a player like Longstaff, it gave him that confidence to get on the pitch and do it. And listen, he shut a lot of people up, including myself. To quote that Arsenal YouTuber, you shut your face, you YouTube twat. That's what he said to me. But Sean came out after the game, and he always speaks really well. Sean, he's such a likable kid, and no matter what you think about him as a footballer, and I always separate the two of them: Longstaff the player, Longstaff the person. Longstaff the person, I've been lucky enough. I've met some of his family, and they're a lovely family. They really are a nice family. They're really just proper, down to earth, solid Geordie people, and he seems like such a lovely kid. I saw him walking into his old primary school kids going mad and stuff like that, and he's just a lovely guy, and he's a great ambassador for, a local lad done well, so take all of that away from his football and ability on the park. As a human being, he's a fucking top guy, but as a footballer, he has moments where he can look limited. And I think, going back to Craig Hope's point, there's a right game for a certain player, and that game at the weekend. And you said this to me, Mark, and in my kind of pre-match little stubborn rant, I went, no, Sandro Tonali. But then when you watch it, you go, I think it's pretty obvious that Eddie Howe knows how to pick a football team slightly better than me. I hate to admit it. It's really killing me to admit it that I can't pick a team I know I can't pick a team as well as Eddie Howe. Who'd have thought it? But I think when you look at a game like that, where we're not going to have a lot of the ball, where we need to put our bodies on the line, we need to rattle players, we need to be. Sean's perfect for a game like that, and he excelled in that kind of role, and in that that sense of duty that was the game, backs to the wall type thing, the underdog spirit, and that's where someone like Longstaff thrives. Now, where I have the issue, going back to my point before about people going mad and kicking off and all that stuff, when we're playing against a team like an Everton who's sitting in a low block and want us to come on to them, that's where Sean's ability as a player, or lack of ability for unlocking defenses, making the killer passes, all that kind of stuff, that's where it's accentuated, and that's where fans get a little bit, ratty and a little bit, hyperbolic about it and hysterical about it at times as well. And that's I think where the frustration lies with Sean Longstaff. But he came out after the game and he said, a lot of people don't think I should play and I can't make a 2-yard pass. And I couldn't figure out if that was you that said that, Mark, or me. I'm only joking. It wasn't us. Hopefully it wasn't us. But it's it might have been you.
May have said something like that.
But to be fair, though, I think a lot of content creators, and a lot of them will come out and do videos and say, I never doubted him and all that. We don't do that. We admit when we doubted a player or we criticized a player and he's turned around and rammed it down our fucking throats. And good on you, Sean Longstaff, because you've done that to a lot of people. There'll be a lot of your mates probably to go, did you see that fucking wanker apologizing for calling you shit? And I hope he smiles about it and says, fuck him. I'll keep playing the way I'm playing. And, the Toon Review lad said the same thing. We are going to make statements as content creators. We're in this space. This is what we do now. You guys love it. We love doing it. And we will make comments sometimes and it'll come back and bite us on the arse and put egg on my face. And Sean did that at the weekend. He did it very well. But he has the shirt now, Mark. But it's up to him to show a level of consistency in games where we're not playing Arsenals and Cities and Liverpools and teams like that. We're playing teams maybe even Forest, who, despite their league position, they might sit in a low block against us. And Sean has to show that level of consistency, which I think is where Paul Max came in at the weekend and started having to go at me for criticising Longstaff. And bad move, Max. I was tired and I was having none of it, mate. But, that to me, I think going on to Sean's performance, he more than justified his position in that team at the weekend. But this is where Eddie Howe, I think, as a manager, and we're going to do a show at the end of the week on Eddie Howe's 3-year anniversary, and I've talked about this. This is where Eddie has to adapt and evolve as a manager, where he has to look at game by game and say, right, is that the right game for Sean? Yes, he's in. Is that the right game for Sandro? Yes, he's in. And this is where he has to use that squad better, Mark, isn't it? I'm really happy that Sean proved a lot of us wrong, but I think this narrative of we now can't win without Sean Longstaff is a bit of a misguided one. I think that there's the right games for Sean and the wrong games for Sean. Saturday was the right game. He stood up. He did really well. Credit where it's due, mate. But, what's your thinking of this whole thing around Sean? And especially what he said after the game as well. And that he's aware of the criticism and everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm on my hands up. I did say something last week about his inability to play a 2-yard pass out to the right-hand side against Chelsea, which he completely messed up. And fair enough. And do you know what I mean? Look, to talk about the lead up to the goal, the pass that he plays out to Gordon was perfect. It wasn't an overly difficult one, but he hit it with perfect amount of pace. It didn't bobble. It was right in the Gordon's path to be able to put that ball in first time. So give him credit, being in the position, being able to put that ball out. But overall, his performance at the weekend was exceptional. He played that role perfectly. He got in up and down as he always does, but he played that disciplined role in that midfield very, very well. And you're absolutely bang on the money. And I think I said this to you as well. I think you're absolutely right. There are games for Sean, and there are games where Sean won't thrive. And where Newcastle are going to be deprived of an awful lot of the ball against them, the City, the Liverpool, against Arsenal, I think he comes into his own with that, because it's pure work rate that gets you through in that regard.
And he runs all day. You cannot deny Sean Longstaff.
No, exactly.
Never something. I think he runs 10K a game. They've measured his distance at a game.
That doesn't surprise me if he's not one of the highest ones there, because he does put an awful lot of work in. Yes, he's not a as technically gifted as the likes of Tonali and probably Lewis Miley as well.
Yeah.
But I also, and this is the point that I made to you on Saturday before the game, if you're playing that midfield three, from what we've seen, there is only Sean Longstaff and Lewis Miley that can play the right-hand side of that flat three, because we've seen Tonali do it and not excel. We've seen Joe Linton and Joe Willick do it and not play well in that regard. So there is a place for him, and it come back to that word balance. It does give the side a nice balance to it when he is in there. But if you're coming up against a side that is going to throw everybody back and sit in that low block, we'll probably see, you know, you come up against the likes of, I guess, probably Ipswich. Leicester would probably do similar things as well.
Everton, those kind of teams.
Yeah, so you want a little bit more creative spark. You probably don't need the second defensive player in that regard, and maybe an additional forward-thinking player at that point. But there is definitely a place for him, and yes, he may not be the answer, and he may not be the long-term one to keep you in the top four. But I sort of probably sound a bit hypocritical in this regard, because he played an integral part in getting you to that point in the first place, getting into that top four. He played very well. It was telling at times when he wasn't in the side that he was missed. But in that right-hand side role, if there is going to be this shift to a 2 with a more forward-thinking midfielder in front of them, then I think Tonali will suit coming into that 2 and probably playing the left-hand side of that 2, because that's what he'd done. And I talked about this last week, and I think he's done that. He did an awful lot for Milan when he was there, and he plays that left-hand side, I think, for Italy as well. He certainly, or he has done. But to Sean, I mean, yeah, he stuck 2 fingers up an awful lot of people at the weekend, because he put the performance in. Yes, he had a bite back, and fair play. You know, it wasn't. You know, it wasn't like some that have come out and really gone for fans or really had a go. But he's quite right to stick up for himself. I think that's fully justified in what he said.
It was a bit of tongue-in-cheek kind of banter as well. You know, he was having a bit of a giggle with it too, wasn't he? But yeah, I mean, he's been very open about his mental health struggles in the past, and you know, certainly under the Baron of Bagan, who was awful with him, and Matty, I think, but by the sound of it. But I think it's interesting. Marcus is talking about Keegan there. Actually, he's talking about KK, and you know, talking about the Sean Longstaff scenario. About yes, he played the part in getting us there. You know, Kevin Keegan's a prime example. 2 words, mate. David Kelly. You know, without that goal, where the hell would Newcastle have been? And what did he do? He upgraded on him. You know, sent him off and said, "Thanks, David. Cheerio, bye bye." And he bought Andy Cole, and then he bought Les Ferdinand, and then he bought Alan Shearer. You know, and he always improved on a player. And I think that's been the criticism of Eddie, certainly. You know, in the 3 years that he's been here, is that does he have that streak in him to say, yes, this lad's done really well and got me here, but I need somebody who can do a little bit more. You know, he doesn't seem to have that. And whether it's an arrogance thing maybe from Eddie, that he thinks he can get more out of that player, or it's a loyalty thing, or it's a combination of both possibly. But, you know, that's kind of going down a rabbit hole. Sean was brilliant at the weekend. He deserves every accolade that comes his way. As you say, Mark, he shoved it back in the face of a lot of the doubters. You know, Sean's a big lad, and he knows that football is one of those things. And rightly or wrongly, when you're out there as a footballer, you're there to be criticised. You know, that's part and parcel of the game. Eddie Howe knows it as a manager. Sean knows it as a player. Matty New knows it as a player. Our parents probably know it as parents. It's not nice to see it and hear it, I'm sure. You know, and there's no reason for it ever to get personal. I think if anyone ever makes it personal, you've gone way too far with any players whatsoever, or managers, or even content creators. You know, I saw that grotesque video from Flex, the Man United content creator, where the girl was being racist in the background. That's just fucking vile. You know, you don't need to speak to people like that. And whether they're a content creator or a professional footballer, they are human beings, and there is a line to cross. You know, as much as you're entitled to criticize the player's ability, you should never, ever make it personal. Comment from Mark saying, he said, this Longstaff narrative annoys me. Gordon did not miss his pen against Everton because Longstaff wasn't playing. Isak didn't miss his 1-on-1 against Brighton because he wasn't playing. Absolutely, Mark.
Yeah.
I think the narrative of Sean, the narrative of Sean is it's really pushed forward as well by a lot of the local journalists. And I think, I like a lot of the local journalists. Don't get me wrong. We've had a beer with some of them, haven't we? We're talking and stuff. They're great guys. But I think when it comes to Sean and Byrne, that they're almost in awe of these local lads. And I think that there is a little bit of a favoritism of them, and it's almost the direct opposite accusation of local players being under more pressure. I think that's almost 180'd a lot of the journalists, is that they're so quick to drive this narrative that we need the local lads in the team to become a good team. And, and there's no doubt that both Byrne and Longstaff were excellent at the weekend, and you can't knock them for that. They both played integral parts in that result, but you can't just say, they're the two that need to be in the team every week for us to win.
No.
That's not a correct statement. And as journalists, I think that's a bit of a bottle job, really, mate, in many ways.
Yeah, just to go back to Mark's point there, and he's absolutely right. I mean, Longstaff has no influence on those two events at all.
Absolutely not. And if we win those games, we're higher in the league. So
and it's only thrown because there is that weird sort of stat that shows that Newcastle actually win more games when he's in the side, but an awful lot of the time it's not because of him, it's because of other things that have gone on. But I do think he does give an awful lot of balance to that midfield. But like we said, there are times when he won't be right. If you're wanting more creativity in that midfield, I still don't think he's the right player for that. But there's a job there for him. There's certainly that at the moment. There is that place in the squad for him to be able to come in, particularly for games like the Arsenal game, come in and put on a performance like he's done. Like I said, if he's going to play against Forest, he's going to continue to play in that role. That level of consistency has to be there for him to maintain his position.
Absolutely. And listen, he can do a job if he keeps it simple, like he did at the weekend. He doesn't overplay, and he keeps simple passes. Football has been littered with players like that. Didier Deschamps and James Milner and even Michael Carrick. Simple passes, nothing too silly. And if Longstaff can keep playing at the level that he was playing at the weekend against what you would call the lower echelons of the Premier League teams, he'll justify his place in the side, and people will stop criticizing him. But going back to what you said there, Mark, as well about the right players as well, that this is almost like a toolbox, is that you don't use a spanner to do the job of a hammer. I'm not calling Sean a spanner, by the way, if anyone accuses me of that. But you don't
just build him up and just throwing him under
I certainly wouldn't call him a spanner. He's a lovely kid. I've said that. That was a comment that pissed me off in the post match, and I was ratty. I did kind of bin a guy off for it, and said, "Oh no, actually, I didn't bin him off." Somebody put a comment on saying that I've slagged off Sean Longstaff for 12 months. No, I haven't. If you go back and look at the videos, that's the last thing that I've done. Actually, a good friend of mine who watches our channel, quite regularly, he said to me, he said, "Are you related to Sean Longstaff? You never slag him off once." And I was laughing. And I said, "No, I'm not, mate." I just said, I just think he's a good lad, and I always caveat it by saying that. So, I've got no vendetta against Sean. I don't think any content creator has, and I don't think any fan has either. I just think it's the frustration, like you say, Mark, the lack of consistency. But he's got that spot now. If he gets the starting berth against Forest, he's got to put in an equal shift, I think, to kind of warrant his place in the starting lineup. But massive credit to Sean at the weekend. Played well, deserves all the plaudits, and as you say, Mark, he's more than justified to throw a little bit of banter out there and give it back.
You're right.
Because he takes a lot of shit, so he's allowed to give it back as well.
Damn straight.
Yeah. Moving on to the last section of the night, Out of Toon, where we talk about non-Newcastle United things as well. But there was actually a couple of Newcastle United things at the start of this. So there was a brilliant tweet that come out. The goal of the weekend, we talked about it, the cross, the header, absolutely fucking brilliant. Somebody put this up on social media, which was absolutely class. The two cats for the cross from Gordon and the header from Isak, which was absolutely brilliant, Mark. And also this stunning picture that the club retweeted. If ever there was a picture to just typify Lewis Hall's game, it's him standing above Saka, holding his leg on the floor. He looks like Russell Crowe in Gladiator. He's just fucked a lion with a sword. Saka's on his ass. And, it's just Lewis Hall saying again, we know how much of an impact the fans can make whenever we play at home. We always feel like we can get the win, no matter who we're playing against. It's really important for us. And, in War Flags, again, was sensational at the weekend. Obviously Remembrance Sunday, on the cards there, and another brilliant display from War Flags. And again, the players have talked about this, Mark, as well. And I think the job that War Flags do, I wouldn't say it's understated, but at times it is, because what they give, not just to the club, to the city, to the community and everything. It's just, it's a special thing, isn't it, Mark? What War Flags do. It's absolutely brilliant, man.
Yeah, I mean, I missed that part at the beginning of the game. I was still in the car coming home. So I missed the first couple of minutes, and I was dying to see what they'd actually done for it. And they always smash it out of the park. They really do. They were the amount of effort that those guys put into everything. There isn't another club that is close. There are others that put on good displays and they'll do their. There's nothing quite like the way that War Flags do it. The way that it's funded, the way that they put it together, and it is something special. And I go back to what we said a couple of seasons ago: is when you see things like that, and the way that players are celebrated, the way that those displays are put on, it's a huge selling point. It has to be a huge selling point.
Definitely. Who wouldn't want to play in front of that? I mean,
exactly.
Even Peter Crouch came out and said he would love to play for Newcastle, in his career. And there'd be players watching that kind of atmosphere going, I'd love to play in front of that. Coming from Marcus saying he slagged off Longstaff ad nauseum. Love him, though. He never apologizes as a fan, ever. And that's a lovely segue, actually, Marcus, as well, in terms of never apologizing for nothing. This crazy bastard was at the game at the weekend, as one of his famous lines. Conor McGregor was in the crowd, and I wondered why. One of my mates said it was a bare knuckle boxing event in Newcastle, and that's why he was there. But probably a bit calmer than normal, Conor, maybe because it was an early kickoff. He wasn't quite up to his usual antics. Maybe later on, potentially. But I wouldn't want to see him later on, mind you, in the big market. But he seemed to be having a decent time in that picture, anyway, mate. So
I'd imagine that the more that day went on, the more
yes,
animated he became.
The more it potentially snowed later on, Mark. Is that what you're trying to say? So
I'm not saying anything.
Too right, he's fucking nails.
Fuck, I'm not fighting him. I'll tell you that much.
We're not as big as True Geordie. You have to fucking hide behind him. He might protect us, mate. But I'll tell you, somebody who's not having a good time is Steven Gerrard over in the Saudi Arabian team. I could never say. I always say like I'll fuck it or something like that. What is it again, Mark?
Fuck.
Etifak. Well, they want him to get to fuck is what they want him to do, because he got booed by his own supporters. Like, so I think it's a 4th loss in 6 games, and the 11th in the Saudi Pro League. Now, Steven Gerrard is an interesting quandary, and brilliant player, probably one of my favourite non-Newcastle players of all time. Just an absolute sensational footballer. Went to Rangers, did a really good job there, won the league. I think took the Villa job way too soon. And much like Lampard, he's kind of been found out a little bit, Mark, as well. I mean, if Steven Gerrard gets pied from Saudi Arabia, will we see him back in club management, do you think?
Probably not. I think he probably goes the way of Gary Neville at that point, and that becomes the end of his coach. He maybe will coach alongside somebody else. I don't think we'll see him as the number one.
Mind you, if Steve Bruce can get 1,000 games, anything is possible.
Well, there is that argument.
It's absolutely absolutely as well. But moving to a slightly lighter note as well, we saw some absolutely brilliant content at the weekend. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was all over social media, but this was absolutely fucking brilliant. This was the Wycombe versus York City match. And imagine, anyone who's been married on in the comments there, or had a stag do, went to stag do, maybe you were the stag, maybe you were the best man. Imagine going to the game and your mates hand you a fucking Elsa dress, put you on the pitch at half time, and the big screen has the words to Let It Go, and you have to sing it in front of a football crowd. Now, I will give credit to this lad. I don't know who he is, but he was giving it big licks and smiling all the way through. I think that as a stag do, Mark, is fucking sensational. I absolutely love that.
I'm now regretting yours. I've missed a trick with you when you got married. I really did. That was just brilliant.
Paul doesn't bother me anyway, Mark, to be fair. You know what I mean? I'd have been all right, mate. I'd have been all right. I'd have pulled that dress off. No worries. Back then, I might have fitted into the fucking thing. Not these days, mate. Ronald saying Conor McGregor was here for the BKFC and supporter of is it Man U despite Gannin On match. He was cushy. I have heard. That's good. That's good, done, mate. Because Conor does get a little bit of stick, as Ian says, early start on the toots. Those are what I knew, Ian, just to go straight in. 2-footed, mate. Absolutely brilliant. Fucking love it. Absolutely love it. But yeah, so I'm glad Conor behaved himself in the city centre. So sticking with quality stuff, mate. This was the post-match interview from was it from Ola Anya, the Forest player, and he said he was knackered, so he just had to hit it as he was swigging a carton of Ribena. I mean, that is fucking amazing, isn't it?
That might be the best post-match interview I've seen for quite a while. He was so honest. He was just like, I was just knackered, so I got to his run. I mean, his goal is insane. It's a brilliant strike. But the fact he's just honest enough to say, I got to that point was this: just swing it, just have a go. I'm too tired now.
It was reminiscent.
That's brilliant.
It was reminiscent of Denver Bar strawberry syrup for me. It was one of them types of things. Yeah. I just loved it. I was fully expecting like his left hand to come up and have a chomp in the other hand, like he was having a school packed lunch or something like that. You know what I mean?
Or a Freddo.
He just finished his like cheese and pickle sarnies before he got in front of the camera. But absolutely class. And let's hope he doesn't score any of them against us in the next game, mate. But speaking of brilliant goals and just brilliant players in general, Mo Salah scored another screamer at the weekend for Liverpool, and he's climbed up the Premier League all-time leading goal scorer list, Mark. He's hunting down Thierry Henry. He's blew past Robbie Fowler and Jermaine Defoe, two great goal scorers. This is a winger, for fuck's sake. 164 goals for Mo Salah. I mean, you've got a fair bit to go until you catch Big Al, Mo. I'm not sure you'll still be here to do that. But, I mean, he could easily blow past Lampard, Henry, and possibly even Aguero, mate, couldn't he, with the amount of games he's maybe got left to play?
Yeah, I suppose it depends on whether he stays beyond this season, but like he's such an exceptional footballer. I mean, that record is unbelievable for a guy that isn't a centre forward. And you look at all of those players around him, they're all central strikers. And I know the game has changed since some of those played, but yeah, I mean, it's just an incredible record. And it never fails to amaze me just how many of those goals he scores when he gets it on his left foot and cuts in and then is still able to score. How have defenders not learned how to defend him at that point and to stop showing him inside? But he's so good. I mean, even if they try, he's just brilliant, isn't he? So fair play to him.
Yeah, he's absolutely class. And to be honest with you, I kind of don't want him to leave the Premier League because there's been so many players who have gone to the Saudi League who really should still be playing their trade, in top European leagues. And I'd be gutted to see Mo Salah leave because he's such a good player. He really, really is. And as long as he's just injured every time they play us, then I'll be all right with that, to be fair. But generally, just what an unbelievable player now. And a class act, unlike a couple of Real Madrid players, one former and one current. Now, this is the story about the ridiculous, petulant, childish wanker that is Vinicius Jr. So spat his dummy when he didn't win the Ballon d'Or. Rodri won the Ballon d'Or. We talked about this, I think, before I went off on my jollies. It's an absolute disgrace the way that he's behaved. And Gary Neville did a podcast and said he's classless, and I totally agree with what Gary Neville was saying there. And I think the context was that he was that arrogant and thought he was going to win the competition that he planned 3 or 4 parties or something to celebrate his victory for the Ballon d'Or. That's how arrogant he was, that he thought he was the winner. And obviously when he didn't win, obviously he didn't attend and Bellingham didn't attend. And I think Ancelotti didn't attend as well. No one from Real Madrid attended just because this fucking princess was upset that he didn't win the Ballon d'Or. Now, if you look at his stats, which you do as the stat man, his stats ain't that impressive, Vinicius Jr. You know what I mean? It's not particularly anything to write home about, really. And that doesn't, just because you got an Instagram reel of doing step overs and fucking flicks to no one, doesn't give you an entitlement to win the Ballon d'Or versus a guy whose team doesn't lose when he plays, and could pass. Probably could pass through the fucking eye of a needle with a blindfold on. You know what I mean? In terms of Rodri, and I just think this whole episode has showed up Vinicius Junior to be a real petulant tosser, and it's a sad indictment of the modern day footballer, in my opinion, Mark. And I don't buy the racial tone that was accused either. I don't want to get too far into that, but I don't buy into that. I think that Rodri was chosen because of his impact to City and Spain. I don't think he was chosen for any other reason than that. But most players, I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, every year one of them won it and the other one didn't, and they both turned up regardless. So who the fuck is Vinicius Junior to not go to that ceremony? I think Gary Neville's bang on, mate.
Well, I mean, if you talk about sort of goal involvement and contributions in that, Erling Haaland would be streets ahead in terms of the number of goals that he scores.
Totally.
So
you can't trap a bag of cement.
I'm trying to think of somebody else. I think Cole Palmer would probably be ahead. Ollie Watkins would probably be ahead in that regard.
Absolutely.
Look, I'm not saying they're better players than Vinny Junior is, but I think you got to look at the bigger picture. What Rodri is to that City side and what was to the Spanish side. He's exceptional, and he's such an integral part of what they do. And it's quite telling that he's not there, and then they're just not as good. So yeah, I mean, you win well and you lose graciously. And Madrid throwing their toys out the pram because he didn't win. It is, I mean, from all of them, I think is a bit classless. You go and celebrate everybody that's there, everybody that's won, not just yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Marcus is saying, imagine if Newcastle had Cole Palmer. Definitely, I'm amazed we didn't go for him. To be honest with you, Marcus, that still hurts me why we didn't really go for him. To be fair, but yeah, I think it's really classless from Vinicius Junior, and it paints Real Madrid in a really bad light. And Real Madrid have had this reputation for a long time, and it was kind of almost verified with this antic of the weekend. And I've got a lot of praise for the Fluminense manager Menezes here, because Marcelino, obviously former left back for Real Madrid legend, won everything.
Similar to Marcelino.
Marcelo, whatever. Sorry, slip of the tongue, slip of the thumb. Even if it's talking like Marcelino, mate, slip of the thumb. But yeah, the former Real Madrid left back, obviously won everything there is to win there. Legend at that club. He is now applying his trade at Fluminense, or he was. And Menezes went to bring him on, and he basically refused to listen to instruction. He said, "Don't touch me," to the manager. And the manager, just cold as ice, went, "Go sit back down." And he sat him back down, and he brought on another player. And the other players on the pitch were a bit confused, didn't know what the fuck was going on. And then shortly after that, that they have cancelled or mutually terminated the contract of Marcelo at the club. And to me, Mark, that's a victory for the manager. But how ridiculously arrogant is that of that player? I mean, what a wanker. I want to say a C word, but I don't want to get demonetized. I mean, what an absolute prick.
Cretin.
This guy is, mate. Yeah, that was the word. There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, man. I don't give a fuck who you are.
You talk about victory of the manager. It sort of reminds us of the reverse. Do you remember when Kepa was going to get brought off in the final?
Yes, I remember
and refused. And that kind of, it just rang a little bit sort of a bell with that, because I just think to turn around and to act like that to your boss is just out of order in that. And look, if you don't agree with that, that's fine, but you're being asked to go on and do your role is to go on the field and carry out the instructions that the manager gives you. End of story. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, and well said, Ian. He's no Pele, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, is he? He's a fucking left back. Yep. You know what I mean? I don't know who the fuck he thinks he is, mate. Well said. But yeah, unfortunately, being classless isn't just confined to former Real Madrid players. So this story came out earlier on here, and I sent them out when you had this into Out of Toon. Now, if anyone hasn't seen this already, so Gary Cottrell at Sky Sports was interviewing the incoming Manchester United manager, the current Sporting Lisbon manager. Is it Ruben Amorim? Is it, Mark? That's how you pronounce it, I think it is. So he was doing an interview for one of his last games as the Sporting Lisbon manager, and he was talking in Portuguese quite a lot. And he can speak English. He can speak English very well. And Gary Cottrell pressed the manager on why he wasn't going to speak in English, and he just said, I'm speaking in Portuguese. He was being very, respectful and smiling all the way through it and all that. And then Gary Cottrell then said, "You've had loads of time with these lot to talk Portuguese, 20 minutes." And then he said this line at the bottom: "It's like a cold shoulder to all your English fans." And I mean, honestly, Sky Sports is so shit at the minute, and there's, with the exception of a small handful of people, especially that handsome Scottish bastard that we've had on the show before, Keith Downey, a lot of them are so fucking awful and rancid and cretinous, and Gary Cottrell, to me, he's been there for years, and he's straight out of the Richard Keys kind of locker room of wank, at Sky Sports. It's somebody that probably should have pied off years ago, but he's probably got pictures of the CEO and a titty boy. He doesn't want to show his wife. He's probably kept his fucking job. But how classless is that to do that in an interview? I mean, what a fucking knob. What is he expecting to achieve from that, man?
So you go into a press conference for a Portuguese club with a Portuguese manager, and you demand that manager talks in English. Fuck off. The level of entitlement from some of the media idiots and the media muppets, because that's our line, isn't it?
Exactly.
It just, I mean, it shows him up for what he is, and I'm sorry, but it's just a ridiculous thing to have done. Look, you've got your opportunity when he turns up, and as they said, look, when he comes and he does his next one, it's going to be in English. Yes, it's not going to be good. I'm sorry, you deal with that, and you put up with what they give you, because, like I said, it's a Portuguese club with a Portuguese manager. He's talking Portuguese. What you want is irrelevant. It's what they want as the club. That's up to them. It's not an interview. It's not a press conference about him being the Manchester United manager. He's there for sporting. So he bellend.
Absolute bellend, honestly. You know what I would do, honestly? If I was Manchester United, I would ban that little shit weasel from the press conference. I would just say, everyone's welcome except you, you little shit weasel. You're not coming in. Fuck off down the road and go get a KFC or something, you little dickhead. You're not coming in. But they won't do that, Manchester United, because they love the microphones, especially Sir Jim Twatcliffe as well. Ronnie's saying that I'm more to apologise to sport and supporters being interviewed by West Ham a few months back. Apparently Liverpool knocked him back before, I think it was on Slot. Yeah, I mean, he was linked to a lot of teams. I mean, some people wanted him for our job. If Eddie was going to struggle, people were talking about him as Pep's replacement. It's interesting, though. It's for me, he's either going to be the second Jose or the second AVB. So we'll reserve judgment until we see what happens. But many a manager has sipped from the poison chalice of that Manchester United goblet and struggled. So he's got a big job on his hands. But I think, yeah, you're right, Mark. The way the media behave is classless, is what we would say. But switching up gears a little bit, a bit more class. So this story broke on social media, and we've retweeted from HLTCO, who's a great guy and put some great content out on socials. And so this is an Osasuna fan. So the lad is called it looks like Jake, so it's probably Jaquez or something if it's Spanish. He traveled from Bilbao on a bus all the way to is that Chiclana, roughly 650 miles for a Copa del Rey first round game, only to see it postponed because of the shit weather. Obviously, Spain have had some awful weather, some real tragedy gone on there as well. The club found out and they took him home with them, which is absolutely brilliant, Mark, isn't it? When all these horrible stories, like Marcelo and Cottrell and Vinicius Jr. being a fucking prima donna. When you see stories like that, it just kind of restores your faith in football, doesn't it? There's still some great stories out there.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean, there's the awful lot of stuff that's kind of come out of Spain over the last few days with everything that's gone on and sort of Valencia and all the people that have just put themselves to go and help out. But it's something like that where the teams just recognise the right thing to do, the good thing to
Absolutely.
do, and just done it. So a huge amount of praise for that. It's something simple, a little bit like the Bruno shirt for the kid
Oh, that
the
was
weekend.
amazing. It was
Lovely.
excellent. That was brilliant. Warms your heart.
Anytime I see things like that, it just that's your link. That's where you want to see your players interact with the fans, and the fans will love you more for doing things like that, and that creates long-lasting impressions for fans of those players and those in the team.
And they only charged them €60 for a stick. I'm joking. They didn't charge them at all. They obviously just took them for free. But Joe Willick also did something nice at the weekend. I think a fan ran on. He ran back with him as well on the pitch and signed a shirt, which was absolutely class. Just a little comment there from Dan. I totally agree with this, Dan. On the topic of poor reporting, this is why podcasters and content creators related to sports have boomed. I totally agree with that. And these shithouse big corporations want a piece of that pie now. And that's why they've got so many podcasts out there. For the big media moguls wanting to hoover up that content and hoover up your views, because they know that you're turning off Sky Sports, not watching little Winnets like Cottrell doing what he's doing, and you're watching people on YouTube who are actually talking with a bit of honesty, like us and Toon Review and True Faith and the other guys as well, so and other content creators as well across the board, So long may that continue, and let's hope the greedy corporate bastards keep their mitts off and don't just put in some more comedians and their friends to get access to the club behind the scenes. I won't get into that one again. A little bit more classy pictures as well. This was awesome, Mark, wasn't it? It was Halloween, obviously, just gone by there, and these two lads. This is right up your street, this, isn't it? So these two lads dressed up as 90s Panini stickers. That is chef's kiss, that, man. That's class, that.
It's brilliant. However, there is a problem with it.
Oh no, you're not going to analytical on this, are you?
Gary Lineker never played in the Premier League.
Oh, come on. I'm calling VAR on that, mate. That's a shithouse decision, that, mate. That's awful. These poor lads making
That's a fact. That was brilliant. Look, it's such a...
You're not playing 1992, Lineker? You need to Google that. I'm sure Lineker played.
I think he'd gone to...
no, I think he was here, I'm sure he was here, You need to look at that. I remember seeing Lineker with a Premier League badge in his arm. Come on in the comments, guys. Make Mark look bad, even though it's his birthday tomorrow. Don't go easy on him. Did Gary Lineker play in the Premier League? What we got here? It's he said it's okay, Mark.
1994 Nagoya Grampus. He'd left Tottenham at the end of the 91-92 season.
Oh, so he never played in the Premier League. Oh, sorry, Spurs lads. I thought it was great. Mark's just pissing on your chips here. He needs context. He needs verification. He's not happy with it.
But that doesn't take away from the fact that that's a fucking brilliant outfit.
That is an absolutely brilliant outfit, to be fair. Unbelievable. And one last story to finish on, which shouldn't surprise anybody. Neymar, who's been utterly shit since he's gone to Saudi Arabian League, injured really for the large majority of his time there.
I forgot he was there.
I forgot he was there as well. He purchased a piece of waterfront land in Miami for $26 million. And that's amid speculation that he will be joining the Barcelona care home that is Inter Miami, according to at WSJ. And they're saying, will we see an MSN reunion at Miami? I mean, if them three start playing together in America again, mate, I mean, it'll be like one of them FIFA games where someone throws a pad on the floor and fucking exits halfway through, but it's like 7-0. That's like cheat code shit, isn't it, mate? That's just not fair, is it?
It's almost like it's almost become like the Legends, isn't it? The old,
it is,
the
isn't
old
it?
Legends League and
better
stuff.
Than Soccer Aid, mate. It's better than Soccer Aid, that line, isn't it?
Bloody right. No, that'd be incredible. For that. I mean, you've got to look and think how on earth they would, given their cost cap and stuff like that, how they would be able to afford them all. But it'd be interesting to I mean, it's going to be one of those that's going to draw people in to watch, isn't it? Because of who they are.
Absolutely. I mean, Bex is redesigning Adidas boots. Maybe he's having to go back to work, Bex, just to pay for these fucking players' contracts, to be fair. But it's not as if he's not a marketable bloke, is it, to be fair, as Bex? You know, he's, I'm pretty sure he just wakes up and goes, I've got a couple of emails here. Yeah, there's another 25 million deal. I'll just sign that up. What have I got to do? Just smolder? No problem. I'll do that right now for you. 25 million in the bank. Job done. Absolutely. Graham is saying that was a cracking crossing head. I could watch that all day. He's obviously referring to Anthony Gordon's Beckham-esque cross. Absolutely, Graham. We could definitely watch it all day long. But it is getting on. That is us done for the show this evening. Thank you so much, everybody who's been in the comments. We always appreciate it. It always helps these episodes flow. Thank you once again to you unbelievable, generous people in the super chats. Is that you in particular, Marcus, you madman that you are. We really appreciate that. And I'm sure we'll put it to good use for the channel. We really appreciate the support. As Mark's eyeing up a bottle of whiskey, as I can see him here. He's looking on the screen of the single malt Mark. No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking.
Right there.
Right there. Don't drink that, mate. You'll get blue teeth. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. We always appreciate it. And thank you for all the birthday wishes to Mark. He's really appreciated it. It should be you saying that. It should be you saying that, mate. But so we'll be back with some more content. We've got a great video coming at the end of the week in terms of Eddie Howe's 3-year anniversary. So make sure you tune in to that. And we'll be back with some more content through the week. We've got a couple of transfer rumors maybe to round up as well. And then obviously we'll be back at the weekend for the match preview and the post-match against Nottingham Forest, which will be a really there's a comment there, Mark. Sorry, I just seen that come up there. You'll have to join the chat with FFTV, bud. Would be good to see you on that. What's that Forest Fans TV, is it? Maybe we could. Maybe we could. I do like the Forest fans. To be fair, they are good guys as well. But yeah, so we'll be back with loads of content this week, guys. Keep it evermore. Have a brilliant evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I hope Hyperbole's got to his plane from Dubai. He's disappeared off the chat, so fingers crossed he's on the flight and he's nice and safe and sound. But have a belt, everybody. Thank you so much. Happy birthday to this old bastard next to me, and thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.